So I just got done with the phone call with a couple good friends who are doing webinars, and they were having some issues, and so they wanted to talk. And I was reminded of the 3 keys, or the 3 things that you can do to immediately increase profits on any webinar that you're doing. And these 3 things are great because they're simple to implement. They're very easy to do. It's going to require effort once on your part, and then after that, it just becomes easier and easier. You don't have to change your presentation or your webinar at all. So if your webinar has been working good, but you maybe need more people showing up, and maybe you'd like to close even more people into customers than you currently are off the webinar. We had one customer who doubled their profits off of the webinar just by doing the 3rd item. A few people have done the 1st item. Most people are doing item 2. You may already be doing number 2. But the thing is once you understand these 3 things and how they work together, it just will change everything for your webinar. So the first one is, I consider to be the most important. That is because anytime somebody registers for a webinar, at the moment of registration is the peak of their interest in attending. That's it. The peak of their interest in attending is the moment that they register. And every second after they register, that interest starts to go down. And the longer it is between the point of registration and the event, the time of the webinar, the further down that motivation goes if nothing is done. So this first thing that you want to do is, right after they register, you want to send a post-registration confirmation text message. And in this text message, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to give them the link to attend. So what you will do is, once they register, you run them through your process that creates a unique link for them to attend. And then you're going to pop that into their contact, and then you're going to merge that into the text message. And in the text message, we're going to attach a V card, or a contact card. And that contact card is going to have our phone numbers, our email addresses. It's going to have our name, our logo, and that's going to be attached to this post-registration confirmation text message. Then what's going to happen is we're going to say, hey, congratulations for registering for the webinar. Here's your link to attend. Here's the date and time. Make sure you put that into your calendar. Then we're going to go to a new line, and in the new line, this is the most important part. So all that stuff, the V card, the contact card, so they can install it on their phone and be able to recognize you when you text or call or email in the future. That's really important. Getting the confirmation saying, yes, you were registered successfully. I sent you an email also with this information, but here's your link to attend. Here's the date and time. Put that into your phone. All super critical. But the next 2 things that you can do, one is mandatory. The second one is optional. The mandatory one is you want to ask an open-ended question, something around or along the lines of, why did you register for for this webinar? So why did you register for the webinar? That some variation on that question. You can make it more specific, but ask that question, because what that does, even if they don't answer it, this is the beautiful part about asking questions. Even if they don't answer it, even if they don't reply to your text message and tell you why, asking the question causes the mind to evaluate the question. And evaluating the question, that builds deeper into their heart the reasons why they registered in the first place. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to set that reason, set an anchor of why it is that they said they wanted to attend our webinar or training in the first place. Because the truth is, life is going to be competing with your webinar. And their life has a lot of different demands. They have a lot of different things that they consider to be important. And if you want your webinar to be part of that, which it should be because they registered for it in the first place, you need to drive that home. You got to drive it into their heart so it becomes important to them. The reason people attend webinars, the reason they remember to show up, is because it's important to them. There's something they're going to get out of it. They don't do it for you. They don't show up because they want to hear what you have to say. They show up because they want to get something for them. So drive that home by asking that question, why did you register? So even if they don't answer, they're answering in their heart. And by doing that, it's setting it deeper in them. And so the importance will come up. Now, there's a couple other things that you can do. One is you could include an image with that text message. This is for multimedia. This is for the US and Canada. But we could include the image along with the V card. And on that image, it might be a bullet points of the things that they're going to get out of attending the webinar. Now, this isn't the things you're necessarily going to teach, although you'll be teaching these things, but it's going to be focused on what they will get. What will they get out of the webinar? So it's benefits that will come to them as a result of the things they're going to learn during your webinar. So that's level 2, let's say. Level 1 is asking that question. Level 2 is also including something that hits home on what they're going to get out of it. So maybe it helps them to answer that question of, why did you register for the webinar? But then the third thing that you can do, this is level 3. I said there were 2, but I introduced 3. So level 3 is this. Link up to a video where you teach them lesson number 1. So if you're going to be teaching them something during the webinar to change their life, and give them a taste, give them a little taste of what you're going to deliver to them. Now, if you know that there's something that might prevent them from showing up, address that in some way in the video as well. But if you'll do those 3 things, that's like a whole new level. Now, the interesting part about this is it only requires you to think hard for probably about 10 to 20 minutes. 10 to 20 minutes of thinking, okay, how could I ask that question of why did they register? And then thinking about, well, what are the benefits they're going to get out of it? I probably already have that on my copy on the registration page, so I could pull that in. And then I might think, okay, what would I say to somebody that just registered that would help them to recognize the value they're going to get out of attending? What could I give them that would be something that they could demonstrate? Now, Dan Kennedy had something interesting. He said, Dan Kennedy's a direct response marketer. I think he's worth looking into if you don't know who he is. But Dan Kennedy used to teach some self-improvement classes a long time ago. And he said one of the things he taught people in the class was always back into parking places. That way, when you're pulling out, you're always moving forward. It was a little thing, but what he was doing is he was installing a connection into everyday life to him. So every time that person parked, even if they didn't back in, they were thinking about, I remember Dan Kennedy told me I should back in. And then if they did back in, they pulled out, when they're pulling out, they're thinking, hey, I'm doing what Dan Kennedy taught me in that lesson. And so what happens there is that creates an anchor connection between you and what you teach and their everyday life. When we had a company called Short Sale Genius, which taught real estate agents how to close short sales and negotiate with the banks, one of the things that we did when they registered for our 3-hour training, which was at a hotel, not online, so they actually had to get in their car, drive somewhere inconvenient, and get out and sit in a room for 3 hours. In order for us to get them to show up, one of the things that we did is we gave them a ticket when they registered. That was on the thank you page. And we said, print this out and put it on your desk so you'll see it so you won't forget, and bring that with you because you'll need that to get in. That was a way to get out of the email and the web page world and get into the physical world and get into their life and be in a place where it would be reminding them, almost taunting them, saying, hey, remember me, remember me. And you want to do the same thing if you're doing a webinar. You want to think about, how can I get into their life? And I do that at the moment of peak interest, which is post-registration, so that you set into their person why they want to show up and attend. Everybody's complaining about not getting people to attend, but they're not doing that one thing that will actually make sure that people attend, which is make it important to them. Reinforce the importance. And this post-registration text message is key because it will show up a few minutes after. It's going to be seen, because we all know text messages will be seen. But because it's going to be delivering those things that we talked about, it's really going to bring it home. So that's number 1. I haven't even covered the other 2, but that's number 1. You just do that. I guarantee you'll have a much higher attendance rate. You'll have much more engagement because you're going to ask that open-ended question. Those that do actually respond are going to give you a lot of insight into what you need to cover during your webinar. And so right off the bat, you're going to be probably 100 to 200% better. Number 2 is what a lot of people do, and it's good and it's important and it's effective, but it's not nearly as important as number 1 and number 3. Number 2 is pre-webinar reminder. Now, a lot of things have been changing in texting, and so as you're doing pre-webinar reminders, like this is like the 30 minutes before, remember to show up text message, those are increasingly going to be more difficult to get delivered because it's going to be sent in a bulk and a bunch all at once. So, there's some things we're working on to help address that. But that's something that you're going to need to pay attention to, is getting that pre-webinar registration. Now, it's not so important if you have like 100 people or less registering for your webinars. That'll be fine. You'll probably won't have any issues whatsoever. But if you get to the 200, 300, 400,000 people registering, that's when it's going to be a bigger concern. But that's number 2, is sending that pre-webinar reminder, so that even if they set the appointment or all that and life came up and they forgot about everything else, they're going to get the text message and go, oh, okay, I need to attend. And if we did number 1 right, then we set the anchor deep in their heart, then the likelihood of number 2 being even more effective goes way up. So if you're already doing 2, fantastic, good on you, because you should be doing that. That also is causing you to have to ask for the phone number at the registration, which is also smart because of marketing rule number 19. And so you want to make sure you're doing that. But again, it's minor compared to number 1, which is setting the anchor. Number 2 is reminding. And number 3 is extremely important. I've seen people double their sales just off of number 3. And number 3 is the post-webinar question, which means people who didn't buy, these are shoulda bots, people who acted like buyers, they showed up, they attended, but they didn't buy. What do we do next? And the next thing we do is we want to ask them, after an acceptable period of time, maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, whatever, whenever you see bulk of your purchases come in, you want to ask this question. The question is, hey, I noticed you got on the webinar. Did you have any questions that I didn't answer on the webinar? That's a simple, you can use that language if you want. If you want to do something else, that's fine. But just asking an open-ended question that says, hey, I noticed that you were on the webinar. Did you have any questions I didn't answer? This gives people an opportunity to express concerns or raise questions that they didn't feel comfortable doing on their own. And that will help double your sales, that alone. It's fascinating because it's so simple and it's so obvious when you think about it. But if you'll ask that question of, is there any question you have? Is there anything that I didn't answer that I could answer for you? Will allow people who are on the fence to actually say, yes, I need your help. Here's my question. And that will result in doubling of your sales. I mean, this is fantastic stuff because it's so simple. So again, we only had to spend about 10-20 minutes to get number 1 done. Number 2 doesn't require almost any time at all. We simply add in a text message into our campaigns that sends a message 30 minutes or so before the webinar, reminding them, to join the webinar. And then we can take advantage of the fact that we already sent the link in the post webinar. So we don't have to send the link again. It's already in the history of messages. So we just will say, hey, remember the webinar starting in 30 minutes. They're going to see when they see that message. Above it is our longer message that set the anchor. And then finally, the third one will be after the webinar. We ask the question, did you have any questions? I saw you attended. Glad you were there. Did you have any questions? And simply by doing that, I can almost guarantee you're going to double your sales at the very least, because you're going to increase initial attendance by setting the anchor. You're going to help people to show up by sending the reminder, and you're going to help people that didn't convert on their own, the people that didn't just go and buy when you told them to buy or do whatever it is you asked them to do on their own, will be able to express concerns that held them back, and that means you're going to have more people become customers. So I hope that this helped you. If you're doing webinars, these 3 secrets are critical. And I cover some of these in my book, The Messaging Connection. If you'd like to get a free digital copy, an audio copy of that, you can text the word LEARN to 949-835-5300. And I'll put that in the comments below. But if you'll do that, you're going to see an increase in your sales. You're going to see an increase in your connection with your prospects. And overall, everything in your business is going to get better. And it's so simple to put in place. It's so easy. You only have to think a little bit up front. And then once you put that in place in the campaigns, you just respond to people's things that they say to you. Like when you ask that question of, why did you register for today's webinar? And they answer, reaffirm that. Oh, fantastic. That's great. I'm so excited. We're going to be covering that. So I'm glad that's what you wanted. Post-webinar, when you say, hey, did you have any questions that we didn't answer during the webinar? And that person expresses that question, enter into the dialogue with them. It's just doing naturally. You just have to be present. And the great thing about texting is one person can deal with 30, 40 conversations at once. Whereas with the phone, we can only talk with one person. You get on there and you start doing those text messages, you can handle a bunch of conversations all at once, and people don't necessarily expect an immediate response. You can delay by a couple minutes if you had to. And that works. It's what texting does. And so it's so powerful. So get these 3 things installed in your webinars and watch your results go through the roof, because people that are registering for your webinar want what you have to offer. We're just probably doing something to drop the ball along the way. And if you put these 3 pieces in place, you can get it done. If you need any help at all, just comment below. I'll connect you with somebody that can help you get these things installed on your webinar. And once you do that, keep giving the same webinar and watch your results go through the roof, because you're actually connecting with people. And that's what the messaging connection is all about. So again, before I go, make sure you text LEARN if you haven't already to 949-835-5300 and get my book. I'll give you a digital PDF copy so you want to reference some of the recipes that are in there, and also an audio copy so you can listen at your leisure, maybe as you're driving around or working. And just watch the difference that happens when you actually connect with the people that you're concerned with, the people that you want to serve. You'll do so much better. This is Ryan Chapman. Hope you have a great day. Look forward to talking to you again.